Thank you for staying with us. Now let's get the show started. The quality of air we breathe is as important as life itself. That is the reason why the United Nations General Assembly has designated 7th of September every year as the International Day of Clean Air for Blue Skies.
And I love the blue skies in that picture we showed earlier, you know, beautiful.
Now, what does this mean? This year's theme for the International Clean Air Day is Healthy Air, Healthy Planet, indeed. Now, what is the importance of all of this to a healthy, wholesome living? This and many more questions we're going to put to our panel this morning, and we have in the studio with us Dr. Debola Odunsi, Technical Special Assistant over at LASEPA, which is a Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
We expect the Managing Director to join us, and we also expect a guest to join us from Abuja very shortly. But we have you with us now. Now, this is all about air pollution, isn't it?
Yes. Foremost, it's critical to understand the concept that we all share one environment. The pollution events of one person can affect so many people. In fact, more than what is envisaged by the initiator of that pollution event most times. You know, when we find out that when we engage people who either inadvertently or deliberately have caused some sort of pollution event, you tend to find out that they don't understand the ramifications of their actions. You know, they believe it is limited to their own space, to their own confines. However, part of our job as an agency, one, is to identify those gaps and also try to do the necessary advocacy and also capacity building to ensure that everyone understands their impact to the environment.
Your agency has been campaigning a lot about pollutions with an S. But in the area of air pollution, do you think your agency is doing enough? And I'm talking about that because I'm thinking right now about pollution from cars, car exhausts. I don't hear anybody talking about it or any campaign on radio or TV about how we should prevent that. And that relates directly to what you said at the beginning, that the initiator isn't aware of how much damage his action is doing to all others.
Well, right on the point. Truth be told, we all can do more. The world is where it is now because of the collective actions of human beings. So to put the blame on private sector, on individuals, on public sector would be a bit myopic.
It's on all of us.
It's on everyone. It's on everyone at the end of the day because statistics coming out of the World Bank as of 2018, road transport actually contributes the highest amount of greenhouse gas emissions in Lagos State, or contributes, closely followed by power generation and manufacturing activities. So definitely the agency, of course, is, the approach is to take it piecemeal. We can't solve all the problems all at once. But the whole idea is if we raise enough awareness around it, if we open up our hands for collaborations to say, okay, we are ready to work with private sector, we're ready to work with public sector, build an inclusive model for actually solving a problem that, even though it's global, has some certain uniqueness, being, by the time you put in the Lagos factor, the Nigerian factor. My general manager would tell you about what you call national determined contributions. These are official waypoints that have been set by the federal government in keeping with the Paris Climate Agreement to say, okay, by 2030, we want to mitigate our greenhouse gas emissions by X%. Okay, now we need to go further we need to start thinking about individual determined contributions, community determined contributions, to say, as an individual, how am I contributing, or how am I going to reduce my own impact to the environment? And the whole idea is for the government to create an enabling environment, which is what led to seminars and webinars, like the type which took place commemorating the International Day for Blue Skies and Clean Air.
So we know that in other parts of the world, Southeast Asia, the WHO, maybe I should quickly just let you see that, every year around 7 million deaths from air pollution. Southeast Asia is top on that list, followed by Western Pacific region. In Africa, nearly 1 million deaths. Africa, of course, is what concerns us, and of course Nigeria is a big player in Africa, and Lagos, when we talk about Nigeria. So she's mentioned car exhausts. What are the other major pollutants when it comes to air?
Thank you very much. As I'd earlier ranked, according to the World Bank, a study done in collaboration with the Lagos State government in 2018, to estimate the cost, the economic impact of air pollution in Lagos. And the statistics were a bit, they were a call to action to say we can't continue down this line. We can't continue what you call business as usual. And we must use bottom-up approach and inclusive strategies. So the whole idea is the government doesn't want to sit on the high table and say, these are the policies that will work. We're interested in discussing with private sector, even within the public sector framework. There are so many collaborations, so many harmonized programs. For instance, if you take a gander at the webinar, the Honorable Commissioner for Health was also on board, because you can't really separate health and the environment at the end of the day. So we've seen that operating in silos, even in public sector, doesn't work. We need to bring everybody at the table. Everybody concerned needs to be at the table at the same time.
Yes, I'm just interested in those pollutants, the ones that are major for us, for instance, in Lagos. Let's narrow it down to Lagos.
Well,
aside from the car...
there are a range of air pollutants that we can look at. There are a range of air pollutants depending on the activities. Like you rightly said, Lagos State is a commercial nerve center. You have both organized and unorganized commercial activities going on, formal, informal, and the truth is everybody's affecting the environment per second. So the aim, of course, is to normalize and regulate all these activities, to be able to say, oh, this is an inventory of sorts. And that brings me to the next point, which is the agency's partnership and the states and the agency's partnership with the World Bank on air quality monitoring. Through the Pollution Management and Environmental Health Program of the World Bank, we were able to secure 6 state-of-the-art air quality monitoring stations across the Lagos State metropolis as a pilot scheme to even say, what are we even generating? What are the sources of these pollutants? What are the kinds? So everyone, I mean, by the time you look on the internet and like, you get the regular list. You get your COX, what you call COX, COX,
You know why
NOx.
I asked? Because some of us might be engaging in some activities that we just think it's normal, but we wouldn't know that what we're doing is, something that is adding to air pollution.
Yes, so truth be told, every human activity has the potential to contribute to air pollution. So by the time you think about open burning, even dumping refuse, when refuse starts to rot, it produces certain gases. These gases are also greenhouse gases. So from our daily domestic lives, we can actually impact the environment negatively or positively, depending on our choice of behaviors and attitudes at that moment.
Okay. We've since been joined by Professor Aliyu Jauro, who is the Director General, National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency. And he joins us from our studio in Abuja. Good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Nigerians.
Yes. Is there any legally mandated standard for outdoor air quality in Nigeria?
Yes, there is. The National Environmental Standards and Regulation Enforcement Agency, NESRA, being the enforcement arm of the Federal Ministry of Environment, we have been promulgated by an act of the National Assembly, and the act mandated us to come up with regulations. So one of the regulations has to do with the air quality, National Environmental Air Quality Control Regulation. So in that regulations, there are specific limits for the ambient air quality and also the indoor air qualities. Likewise, we know that there are activities that impact on the air qualities. For instance, we talked about production processes, some industries. So in that regulation, it is specified that no matter how the activity, they should try to limit the emission to not more than 60% of what is stipulated in the regulation, that is the ambient air quality. So this ambient air quality picked the most important parameters for the pollutants, the nitrogenous oxide, the sulfurous oxides, methane, and also we have the carbon dioxide. So these are captured, and we also have other parameters that determines air quality. Likewise, we have the particulate matter. So really we have that in our regulations.
So there is a standard, Professor. That being so, yes. How do you ensure that we stay within the parameters which you have just given?
What we do is to carry out compliance monitoring and enforcement. So we always start by sensitizing the general public and also by working with stakeholders all over the country. And we go on monitoring the activities. But you know, it's not easy, as mentioned by the previous speaker. We all play our role when it comes to environment. It's not only these facilities or industries that pollute. Other peoples, we have domestic types of pollution. And compliance is always a challenge. So after due consultations and after all necessary compliance monitoring, we have a procedure. When that is exhausted, we will, most of the time we'll be left with no option rather than to sanction the airing facilities. So last few weeks we went out and we sealed a lot of facilities that are not in compliance with some of these environmental guidelines, including those to do with air quality and toxic substance pollution.
You're able to sanction organizations and maybe companies that you can see and you know, okay, this is where they are and you can regulate them. What happens with individuals? You have mentioned that it's not just about companies, it's not just about organizations. Individuals, how do we get to that route? Because you see people bring out their refuse, put fire, and then you have pollution. You see people in sites like areas where buildings are just coming up, they cut down the trees, it's dried, and then they put fire, and everywhere there's smoke. What do you do about that?
What we always do is to sensitize them. Most people are not aware of what of their activities' impact on the environment. For instance, if you go to especially rural areas, they're in the habit of gathering all the other unwanted agricultural waste. They will set it on fire, and open burning is prohibited. So most people are not aware. So we are doing our best to ensure that people are first educated so that we can get their buy-in, because voluntary compliance is key. We cannot be everywhere. If you want to monitor Nigerians, you cannot always be there. And you know, we have presence in state capitals. We are not even at the local government. So we need to engage more hands, and we need to collaborate. We need volunteers at community levels so that they engage with the community to sensitize them and let them be aware of the importance for them to pay their dues to the environment. We have to do the right thing, because if we pollute this environment, we don't have any other place to go. We are going to be affected health-wise. It's going to impact on the economy and the entire ecosystem. So we engage with stakeholders and we try to sensitize them first. But there are also provisions for individuals. They can be sanctioned.
Okay, engagement is quite very necessary. But on the other hand, I'm just thinking, so you cut down these trees or you have this refuse and you really don't have the agencies that are in charge of ensuring that these things are taken away doing their utmost. What are you doing in that area in terms of collaboration with those agencies that should be in charge of refuse collection to ensure that they go into these communities and get this refuse to the right places?
We are always engaging with them. As you know, issue to do with refuse settles with the local government and also the state. It's not the responsibility of the agency. So annually we always engage with stakeholders all over the country. We invite the state governments, the local governments, the NGOs. We sit down together to brainstorm on current and burning environmental issues. So we have been discussing about this, and with the current effort of Mr. President, I think maybe the local governments now would be good enough, because they have been given their financial autonomy. Maybe they will have the finance to be able to finance some of these activities of waste collection. And the intent now is not just to collect and dump. The waste is now being changed to a wealth. The waste is now seen as a raw material, so we are currently promoting the issue of extended producer responsibility. Those generating the waste must take care of the waste at the end of the life of any item they have produced. If it has become a waste, they should be able to take it out of the environment, recycle it, get the value out of it. By so doing, we are going to conserve our raw materials, we are going to create jobs, and we are going to generate a lot of income.
He's been joined by the Managing Director of the Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency, Dr. Dolapo Fashawe. Good morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
You have missed a substantial part of the conversation, but that's fine. You are in charge of environmental protection in Lagos, so I think we can throw you in. Even if we threw you in at the deeper end, you would know exactly how to swim. Now, road transportation. We hear that that is the most guilty party in what we're talking about. What plans are there to make cars greener or to make transportation greener?
Right in the deep end, like you said. I would like to extend my greetings to Professor Jauro, who has been an exceptional leader in moving environmental awareness forward in Nigeria. We're working closely with NESREA, and we're starting to see results. So greetings, sir. Now, right in the deep end. There's something called source apportionment, and there's also called an emissions inventory. We have worked with World Bank for about 9 months trying to figure out what is going on and where this pollution is coming from. And our biggest pollutants in Lagos is traffic. In industrial nations, it's industrializations. It's in developed nations. It's in industries, it's in air travel, never in traffic. And the reason is simple. The kind of fuel we use and how often we maintain our cars. Cars are not made to pollute the air. Cars are a necessary part of life. But when you put fossil fuels, diesel, petrol, and your engine is not in the right state, the fuel does not totally combust. The mechanics that should happen to remove carbon monoxide and soot is not happening. That is where you see a car smoking. A car should never smoke. Now in Lagos State, we have MOT, we have LACVIS, and LASEPA and the Ministry of Environment is taking a more proactive, not reactive stance against air pollution. And how do we intend to do this? Very soon, we would have no choice but to police the environment. Once your car is smoking, it's off the road. It's as simple as that.
Dr. Pasha, we have got news for you. Sometimes you go for your annual MOT renewal, and they don't even ask to see the car. And I'm wondering how you can certify that my car is roadworthy without thoroughly examining the car.
I find that a little bit, probably, I don't want to say it's not true, but to make your car roadworthy, you go through MOT, you go through LACVIS, and LACVIS specifically checks emissions with machines, and they tell you what to do.
So that means most of these vehicles, particularly those commercial ones, don't come to
they are the ones
for MOT,
they
because
are the ones
you find them on the road and
smoking away,
like even they could cause accidents, because when it's in the night and you find such vehicles smoking that way, visibility is impaired.
Yeah.
So it's not only accidents. Even inhaling that smoke, particulate matter, soot, is dangerous to the health of the driver and the passerby. The conversation here, the narrative should start to change. Environmental protection cannot take care of this business alone. We need all government forces, road safety, police, LASMA, army, everyone has to come on board. And the only way they would come on board is if they start to realize the importance of clean air, the health impacts of dirty air. And I assure you, Lagos State, under the leadership of Mr. Sanwo-Olu, when they mean business, they mean business. I have seen this, it has happened, and we're going for clean air.
Because I wanted to say now that meaning of business, you really need to put it into action, because we see a lot, and I'm sure you see it too.
Oh, we see it. In fact, I don't know if my colleague spoke about Ikorodu. Recently, we had to seal about 6 steel factories in Ikorodu. The biggest steel producing factory in West Africa, we sealed it up because it was polluting the air. And how did we know? Apart from the random messages, oh, the air is, we can't breathe, we have an air quality machine in conjunction with World Bank situated in Ikorodu. And all of a sudden, we're seeing spikes in volatile organic compounds. We're seeing spikes in lead, in mercury, in carcinogenic substances. That's, we couldn't ignore.
Wow.
We went right there and did our forensics and realized it was coming from this. In fact, the machine, that's the source apportionment, dispersion model, tells us where this particular smoke is coming from. It pointed at the steel industries, and we sealed them all up. That was the first time in Lagos State that a steel industry would not produce overnight. And it was sealed for 1 week. We met, had conversations, and decided on the way forward. Yes, we want entrepreneurship. Yeah. Yes, we need these steels to build houses. Iron rods, that's what I saw there. Massive exercise going on. But not at the expense of the environment or
health.
Wait for it, human lives. when the furnace blows soot in the air, what it then means is, you know, we're not manufacturing steel from iron ore in Nigeria. We're recycling. So somebody comes in with a wheelbarrow. There's still the tires, there's still the plastic handling, there's still the paint, and they throw it right into the furnace. What you get is plastic waste and NOxes and SOxes, sorry, gases that cause climate change. And it's amazing that we had to even explain this to the people that work there. And to commence operations, they had to come up with an action plan. There's a project we're working on in La Cepa. It's called Clean Air Action Plan for 2025, between now and 2025. And we hope to achieve it by then. It's possible. The world is looking at net zero for 2050. However, Lagos' determined contribution is for clean air for 2025 by constant advocacy, enforcement, and ensuring compliance.
Well, without a doubt, you have your work cut out. Let me bring in Dr. Odusi. Dr. Odusi, I remember growing up, you could buy leaded fuel and you could buy unleaded fuel. Of course, these days, you don't even see leaded anymore. But we are told that the sulfur content in our fuel is still quite high. What is happening in that regard to make sure that even that is reduced to the barest minimum?
Thank you very much. Sadly, we need to accelerate and accept newer technologies and what you call sustainable alternatives to some of these dirty fuels. Now, dirty fuels? Yeah, it will pain you to know that diesel that comes from a refinery has what you call a D10 to D50 capacity. So let's call it the sulfur profile of that fuel is lower when you refine it freshly. But sulfur is mixed into Nigeria's diesel because our engines, our large plants, our machineries here are still so archaic. They are the technologies of the 60s and 70s. And these things cannot just burn clean fuel. So the whole idea is, of course, like I said, through public-private sector collaborations, we need to look at adaptable and sustainable sources of alternative fuels and technologies that we can adapt to the Nigerian situation.
Let me go to Abuja. Prof, so we've talked about some man-made sources of pollution, and we also have natural sources of pollution. For Nigeria, what would that be, and what exactly is NESRA doing in terms of, containing it, if not possibly eliminate it?
Thank you very much. For Nigeria, I think we are lucky. Some of the natural sources of pollution are not as much as compared to what you have in other regions of the world. For instance, one of the major contributors to air pollution is the natural source is volcanic eruption. When volcano erupts, it comes up with a lot of ashes, a lot of sulfurous compounds that impact on the air quality. And likewise, we have issues to do with bushfires, even though we have some of these things happening in Nigeria, but it's not as much as what you experience in other parts of the world, like Australia, even the United States, where they do experience this year in, year out. But still in Nigeria, we have other challenges. For instance, still we experience some of these forest and bushfires, even though these issues of bush burning is prohibited. But we still have in some rural areas where people indulge in setting bush on fire, especially these hunters. When they go on hunting, they set the bush on fire just to in order to get some of the wildlife for them to catch. So we are doing our best to see that we enlighten them, and if they don't stop that, we go ahead with enforcement. We have been engaging with a lot of stakeholders, as I have said, and we will try our best to see that some of these things are stopped. Likewise, we have issues to do with refuse. When you dump refuse anyhow, as mentioned by Dr. Duse, you know when it decomposes, it generates a lot of greenhouse gases, especially methane, which is one of the greenhouse gases, and it adds to the pollution lot of the air, and this leads to the global warming, the rise in temperature, and other associated issues like flooding that is bedeviling the whole nation now during the rainy season. So it's very, very important. For us, we can play our roles. For instance, tree planting, when we plant a lot of trees, even though we have these natural factors affecting the air quality, but still when you go on planting the trees, it serves as a carbon sink. It will absorb the carbon dioxide, and it will also assist a lot in checking some of these environmental challenges.
Okay, thank you, Prof. We'll just go on a very quick break now. When we come back, Dr. Fashawe will tell us about what's happening at the Olsos dump sites. Stay with us. Welcome back. So before that break, Dr. Fashawe said you were going to talk to us about what's happening at the Olsos Dumpsite, because there's no way this discussion is going to end. People around Ojota area, that very strong smell coming out of that area. Some time ago, we saw that dumping activities, were stopped, and then we see vehicles going there again. What's the government doing about that?
Thank you very much. Olsos is about to be decommissioned in a couple of months to years. It wouldn't be a dump site anymore. Even in developed nations, they have dump sites. They have landfills. You just have to treat waste. And the difference between them and Olsos is that there's something called mechanized dump sites. Right now, the Ministry of Environment is actively working on Olsos. If you drive through there now, you will see it's like it's flat. There's something called capping, where they put some form of laterite and some hard substances that push the dangerous gases back into the soil, not letting it come into the air. And very soon, we're going to have an incinerator in Olsos. And there'll be proper sorting from even collection. Lagos State is relaunching its Blue Box initiative, where you have to sort your waste from your house. When that happens, what happens when there's smell and when there's combustion, like Prof said, at times there can be a spontaneous combustion? Is vegetal matter, food, mixing with oxygen, mixing with some substances that waste from probably an AC, and then you have a little bit of sun, and a natural reaction just occurs, and then boom, you start to see smoke. But if all these wastes are sorted and treated before putting together, that would never happen. That is what a mechanized dump site is. There's no way we won't have landfills. They're there all over the UK and America. But we are working extensively. If you look at the government's budget, the amount sent to waste management is in billions. And I heard the Prof say it's been ceded to the local governments. In Lagos State, the Ministry of Environment is actively involved in the matter of waste management. That is why we have the Lagos State Waste Management Authority, because we can't leave it to the local government. That's about Olsos.
Yes. Let me take you back a bit. You had some more information for us regarding the steel industry.
Oh, yeah. So I was saying that apart from the air pollution, let's talk about the health impact assessment of polluting the air when you smelt iron with impurities. You start to see the nitrous oxides, sulfur oxides, carbon monoxides, greenhouse gases, lead, mercury, things that can cause cancer. That is why you see a 70-year-old man come down with lung cancer and they'll say, oh, he never smoked. We don't know how come, what's going on. But he's been inhaling particulate matter that his lungs cannot filter. If you can see it, you can't filter it. That is my own theory. Stay away, cover your nose, or walk the other way, because oxygen is colorless, doesn't have an odor. That is what our body was made to receive. Now, let's put that aside. That's health impact on human beings. Now, imagine building a house. I don't know the mechanical engineering part of it or civil engineering part of it. And you think you have 80 millimeters of steel, but actually you have 80 millimeters of steel, rubber, wood, and a little bit of... It's a major cause of building collapse. It's really a serious matter. These buildings that collapse all the time is because the steel holding the beams, the engineer is assuming this is pure steel.
It's not 100%.
Yes, it should hold this beam.
But it isn't.
When you don't sort from scratch and you're not creating steel from iron ore, which is not what we do in Lagos, we recycle. We're advocating recycling. We like recycling. It's a circular economy project, but not at the expense of the environment or human health.
Okay. Dr. Odusi, I was tickled, maybe you noticed, when she spoke about sorting out our wastes from our homes before they're actually carted away. How exactly do you intend to achieve that? To the woman who lives in Isaliko, for instance, to the family that lives in Agege. How do you intend to explain all this to them so that they can actually sort their waste?
Okay, I'll start with the good news, and that is time and time again, Nigerians have proven to be very adaptable people. If you give them the right information and you give them the right tools and you incentivize it, you will see that they will accept such a solution, especially if it is inclusive, if they were included in the conceptualization of that. So by virtue of that realization and under the leadership of our GM and the Honorable Commissioner for Environment, we have taken a lot of strides to actually engage at community level. So we're not talking about private sector, we're looking at the people that are using this thing. Who are the people that are the wholesalers? Who are the retailers of these items? You know, and furthermore, the state has put in place certain policies we're driving certain policies right from the national level. There's a national plastic policy management policy now in place, and a state version also that is, though nascent, but we're rolling it out, we're piloting it, and we're trying to learn as much as possible. Also from the private sector point of view, we have a lot of these collectors who are so far operating in silos, but they are doing good work. You know, a lot of them have apps. They have different modalities for people to reach them, even as far as USSD codes to say, okay, I have a pickup for you. And the whole aim is we're not trying to talk to for LASEPA. We're not trying to talk to be educated, to be exposed. We want to get to the community, to the woman who is selling these things at the most rudimentary level, and help her family, and help her family unit understand the impact that single bottle that she's selling, that plastic bottle that she does not reclaim, that she does not sort. We want to help them understand the impact of that to their own business and to the environment and to the health of their future generations as well.
Okay, so how's this going to look when it takes off?
So at the end of the day,
I have my trash in my house. Now you want me to do what? Put plastic in one container.
Yes.
Put what else in the other one?
So you will have they are color coded. So you have the cans, you have glass, you have plastic, you have nylons, single-use plastics and the like, and your domestic waste or your municipal waste.
My food waste.
Yes.
Let me butt
So
in.
that's 5 containers.
No, let me butt in there. The Lagos State government recently launched an app called Packup.
Yes.
Have you heard of Packup?
Yes, we heard about that.
Please
because
download Packup.
Loma MD was here to tell us about it.
Yes. And we're leapfrogging on Loma to use Packup to protect the environment.
Okay.
So you can also use Packup to report infractions. Packup also helps you sort your waste. It tells you what to do and how to do it. So at times you may not have the 10 containers. The off-taker would come and say, okay, just keep your plastics in a carton for me, I'll pick it up.
Okay.
So we also recognize the, simplicity or sustainability of these things, because I saw you smirk there like, how for dustbins in Lagos?
Let me take this quickly to Abuja. Prof, let's talk about federal government's plan or the policy concerning emission pollution, what the government is doing and what the people also need to do.
The government is trying to see that emissions are cut down. The mother ministry of Nesria, that is Federal Ministry of Environment, they have had a lot of policies on all environmental issues. So there is a national policy on environment, there is also national policy on plastics, there's also the one on general waste management. So, and we are trying to see that we transform all these policies into regulatory frameworks that will work in order to check this issue of waste, for waste and air pollution also. So for instance, to do with waste, there is provision for extended producer responsibility. Whoever generates waste should take care of it. So good news is for some of this domestic waste, we have already have some engagement with major producers. For instance, the food and beverage sector, they are those that produce most of this plastic waste, and they are able to form their what we call producer responsibility organization. So the PRO is a third-party organization that manages the waste generated by these companies on behalf of them, and they incentivize, they fund the activities of the PRO, and the PRO is expected to incentivize the issues of collection and recycling. So there's going to be some money available for those that are going to be engaged in some of these businesses. So not only the food and beverage sector, we have issues to do with the e-waste, the electronic waste. Nigeria being a consumer nation, and we import a lot of second-hand electronics into Nigeria that packed off after being used for a few weeks or months. So we have a lot of issues to do with e-waste, especially in Lagos. We are working hand in hand with LASEFA. The DG, Dr. Dolapo, is doing well. Currently, we are piloting a project on the extended producer responsibility to do with e-waste, and we also have that of the battery waste, because batteries are generated not only by the automobile sector. Presently, we are talking about greener form of energy, that is the solar energy, and we use a lot of these batteries to store the energy. So the quantum of battery waste that is going to come out from these sectors are going to be enormous. And you know, batteries, they contain a lot of harmful substances, ranging from the acids, and also they use a lot of lead, and lead is very, very poisonous. So currently people engage in recycling of these items, and they do it in such a way that it affects their health and also impact on the environment. So the essence of this EPR and the pure RO model is to see that we have a standard way of doing this collection and recycling without impacting on the health of those involved and also the environment, and at the same time providing a source of employment and also revenue generation. Okay. So that is some of the things we are doing.
Okay, Professor. Well, we have run completely out of time, but I need to take your last words on this in half a minute each, starting from Dr. Fashawe. Clean air for blue skies. Your last word on this.
A recent World Bank report says only 6.9% of Nigeria cook with gas. 6.9% of women in Nigeria cook with gas. The rest are on kerosene, charcoal, wood, even cow dung, and all of this.
How do you cook with cow dung?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Even sawdust, and all of this are dirty fuels.
Okay.
6.9%.
Okay.
My last message is switch to gas. It is clean, it is better, it is healthier. Thank
Dr.
you.
I'll borrow a leaf from my general manager and say the best guidance for public sector, private sector, and communities is, if you want to assess yourself, self-appraisal, what am I doing to the environment? Think people, planet, profit.
Professor, your final word, please. Professor.
We won't have a place to live. So for us to have a clean air, let us do the right thing. Let us track our carbon footprints and other pollutants, so that we have a very clean air and a very clean environment for the sustainable development of Nigeria.
Thank you very much. That was Professor Aliyu Jauro, Director General, National Environmental Standards and Regulations Enforcement Agency, NESREA. And we had in our studio in Lagos, Dr. Dolapo Fashawe, General Manager LASEPA, and LASEPA stands for Lagos State Environmental Protection Agency. And we also had Dr. Debola Odusi, Technical Special Assistant over at LASEPA. Thank you all very much for coming to share your time with us this morning and for giving us some very startling statistics indeed. Sunrise will continue in just a moment with another interesting conversation. Do stay with us.